to Sunset Chats. This is Magellan here, just giving you a little intro before the show starts. As we've been saying for a while now, these episodes have been recorded a few months ago, so if anything feels out of date news-wise or COVID-wise, which I don't think is the case in this episode, that's why. I also wanted to give you a little heads up that in the discussion of the second episode, we cover some heavy topics. There's conversation about Tom and his brother in Iraq. There's also conversation about Jordan and complications with her pregnancy. And then most substantially, there's conversation about Matt Albee and his struggles with drugs and addiction. And we spent some time trying to piece through and figure out how we feel about that plot. But I just know that there might be folks out there who, don't know if they can necessarily sit through a conversation that long about topics like that. So I want to give you that content warning. Anyway, thank you for listening and enjoy, and stick around to the very end to hear me again giving you some more up-to-date current plugs about what we got going on with chats. So without further ado, on with the show.
Live from Studio City on the SunsetChatz, it's Wednesday night on the internet.
Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, season
10.
Studio
Did I say
60.
city?
Studio, what? Oh, yeah. Don't tell me. I think you said city. Don't tell. I won't tell anyone, though, if you don't tell anyone. This is Chats Television Podcast Studio Season 10, Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz. And my name is Alan. And I'm joined by the man who issued a fake bomb threat to the Chat Studios. But we liked him so much that we decided to keep him on the show for a little while. Hey, everyone. It's Magellan.
I thought it.
It's
I
a
thought
joke,
it'd be,
dude. It's a prank. It's a prank.
I thought it'd be funny. I thought I'd see it on the news. I'm sorry.
It's a joke.
It's joke. Oh my god, if that character from Love Live.
I'm sorry.
Me and my weird
don't
friend.
Don't tell my mom.
You were gonna be on the national news, you dipstick. Okay, well, welcome, John. I'm glad to have you here to talk about Studio 60 with me yet again.
Thanks, man. I'm just glad to be out of the house.
Wait, we're in quarantine. We're not allowed to be out of the house.
Yeah,
That's bad.
That's true.
But also joining us in the house is the host of our new spin-off show, Studio City on the SunsetChatz. It's 6.
Hi, everyone. It's me. I have 2 lines, and now I'm gone.
And one of them comes at an extremely inappropriate time at the end of the episode, talking about drug addiction, and then you're like, did I get my lines wrong? It's like, shut up, Herb. Get the fuck out of here.
I was talking about my lines of cocaine.
Ah.
It was a metaphor.
There's a whole other drug plot happening with the announcer that we never see, but he has a really bad drug problem.
He could totally, we're going to cut to like years later, and him and Matt Albee are both in rehab. And they're like, wait, you, and I, what? Wait a minute.
Yeah, if this show had ever gotten the 10 seasons that it deserved. We would have actually been able to see that plot.
Finally, right?
See, that's an amazing thing, because these 2 episodes are good episodes because they are failing episodes of a TV show about a failing TV show.
Yes, especially that first one. So if folks don't know, first of all, why are you here? Second of all, we're talking about 2 episodes of Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, the often forgotten Aaron Sorkin, 1 season before it was canceled television show about fake SNL. And this week we watched episode 17, The Disaster Show, as well as episode 18, Breaking News. The Disaster Show had a teleplay by Aaron Sorkin, story credits by Chad Gomez-Creasy and Dara Resnick-Creasy, and it was directed by Tommy Schlamme. And it aired May 24th, 2007. Now, Magellan, can you tell me what happened in The Disaster Show, please?
In this episode, Allison Janney, as herself, is the guest host of a show that goes haywire when the prop masters and cue card workers stage a last-minute wildcat strike. While the show is on, a bomb threat referencing a Muhammad sketch threatens the building. What did we all think of The Disaster Show? I mean, was it really that bad?
Yeah.
Was it really a disaster?
Was it really that bad?
It was a pretty bad in canon show. It was a great episode of this
I
show.
see. I would contest that, and I would say that actually the mishaps led to some really great comedy, some really cutting edge jokes.
Due in no small part to the incredible acting efforts of one Allison Janney, who ostensibly carries this episode on her back.
Yes. This is the Allison Janney show. This is a peek into a world where I like this TV show a lot better.
She's just so like aware and fun and engaging. She kind of like just owns the scene every time she's in it. It was weird though that we opened. I did like this episode as well, just to say that. But it was strange how we opened with like another. Both of these episodes had like extended recaps of like most of the series so far, which in this case barely had to do with this episode. Like you could ostensibly watch this one without too much background. It's pretty self-contained, which I like, especially in a serialized show like Studio 60. But we get this whole recap, and then we get the introduction of these union guys, which I think it's important to talk about union workers in Hollywood, especially in the acting industry, and like acknowledging that it's not just actors and writers and producers, it's also prop people, it's makeup, it's cue cards, it's outfits, it's a big production happening here. And if you take out one or two of those union people, you can't make the show happen. You have to put all the props on a table in order, and then the table breaks because the guy who keeps the table working doesn't work here anymore.
So with the opening, it gave me big like. I only watched this after fact, but did either of you watch Arrested Development?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, we do.
You know how near the end of the run of Arrested Development, the original run, the narrator started being like, "Gosh, I wonder what's going to happen. You should probably call your friends, tell them to tune in." Like it had,
Please
it
watch
had
our
that
show.
kind of energy to me, where it felt like, I mean, you don't need to know this for the episode, but gosh, watching this, doesn't this seem like a show you'd want to watch and tell your friends to watch? It smacks of desperation in a way I find fascinating.
Please, our ratings are hemorrhaging, which is hilarious considering the second episode, which is not about ratings.
So I wanted to try to figure out if there's anything interesting about this episode that led to it being the way that it is, and I did some IMDb trivia sleuthing.
Oh hell yeah!
And this episode doesn't feature Matt or Danny or Jordan. The reason is that all three of them agreed to not do this episode so that they wouldn't have to be paid for it to save the show some money.
Oh boy. That's interesting and sad. This show's gonna. You're watching a show basically implode.
You are watching the disaster show.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how intentional that was. Like, this episode must have been written months in advance, but the fact that it's now coming out in the time where the Studio 60, the program, is failing as well is really interesting. I kind of was curious if we thought that the stuff about the union people, especially as I would consider as somewhat of a leftist podcast at the very least. If you think that the union stuff is like Sorkin making jokes about unions because he doesn't like them, or if you think it's just acknowledging that, hey, these people do hard work and like without them we can't succeed, or what's the sort of take here?
I don't know that there was like a political agenda there, because I think the entertainment industry is like the one industry in our country where there are sizable unions and regular strikes, to the extent that like Sorkin is in a union as well.
Yes.
He's in the Writers Guild of America, and he certainly has participated in writers' strikes before. So I think I don't know that there's a take here on unions so much as just like, how can we make wacky stuff happen? And there was kind of a weird vibe of the cue card guy being like, "Go fuck yourself." So like, here's your cue cards or whatever. But I think that was more about kind of mocking actors for, actors and writers, the people who are usually recognized as like the creatives, for not respecting or understanding where all the stuff comes from.
I feel like it's walking a line.
Yeah.
I think Aaron Sorkin, I am not an Aaron Sorkin fan. I think Aaron Sorkin has a lot of problems, but I don't think he's a complete idiot, right? And I think if he wrote an episode about how the prop masters were useless, he'd have some problems with his prop masters.
Now, his prop masters would leave.
And so I think this episode walks a line where it's like, I mean, you have Cal being like, and of course we totally respect them screwing us the last minute, and this is totally fine. But it does portray them through that cue card guy and stuff as being kind of petulant, and also through the pranks, right? Like they don't, some of them it's like, okay, if they screwed up like the sound effects and the squibs, that could just be people improvising. But like someone didn't accidentally replace
Harriet's water
with alcohol. That was on purpose, and that is really like petty and unprofessional in a way.
True. And also, I guess the other piece of evidence in support of that is we learned that what Danny said to them is that they're like useless and replaceable. And then when somebody says that to Jack Rudolph of like, oh no, Danny told them they're replaceable, Jack Rudolph's like, yeah. Aren't they
not? Jack Rudolph also says, I think in this episode, something like he's like talking about ratings and like forgetting that there are people behind the work of their job. So definitely leaning more into the like Jack Rudolph doesn't care about human beings, which is in character, I think. The last thing I was going to comment on with that stuff, though, is that we're in May of 2007, and it was just a couple months later that the actual like most famous Writers Guild of America strike happened in November of 2007, which I'm pretty sure Aaron Sorkin was a part of, like you said. So, that must have been on their minds, union stuff, negotiating for pay.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I was trying to drive at is that it is just like kind of a constant truth of Hollywood that everybody belongs to some sort of union, and everybody's always trying to like, eke a little bit more money out of whatever deals they're making.
True.
I also want to shout out, these two episodes are where I feel like, I mean, maybe it happened earlier if I go back and I'll notice, where Jack Rudolph's actor, Steven Weber, has made a turn, right? He has decided this show is going to go down. I am going to like basically act as though Jack Rudolph is also on another show.
Yeah.
He has this whole extra layer of like development that's clearly happening off screen, where he's gone from being this like comedically angry boss to this person who's just like completely lost in like obsessing over their work, but also trying to do whatever they can at any moment to lessen the overwhelming stress of their life.
Yeah.
He is one of two performances these episodes that I want to shout out. The other one we haven't gotten to yet, but he's just fantastic here.
Yeah, you get the sense that he realizes that there's a fire going on, that he's like getting ready to start putting out. He's at the very cusp of it.
The news about Studio 60's cancellation had been announced by the point that this episode aired, by the way. I don't know that I don't think that they knew about it when they were like creating it, but this episode aired on May 24th, and the cancellation was officially announced on May 14th. So people who are watching it live at this point are like, "Oh, this show is a lame duck." At this point,
yeah, it's spinning it's running its season out basically.
Yeah.
But one of the best things about them having to handle all this chaos is that instead of Matt and Danny, we get to zoom in on the actors and the producers. Most importantly, Cal, who is, again, one of the stars of this episode.
We get to have the show that I've been saying the whole time is what Studio 60 should be, which is a show about the people who make a sketch show.
Yeah.
And it made me think it may have been a way better show if Matt and Danny just were never characters that we saw. If they're sort of talked about and people are like, oh, Matt and Danny are going to be happy about this, but you never see them, that is a much better show.
Because that's the way Wes appears in like the flashbacks and stuff. And it's really effective.
You talk about Wes, and you guys got to respect Wes. Yeah.
Yeah. So it made me wish that this is what the show was, with some other stuff maybe removed from this episode.
My only reasoning for why that, definitely with some stuff removed from this, but I think the reason why we get them is obviously you get some nice like shining star roles to put on advertisements, and Sorkin likes writing serialized television by this point. He likes telling long arcs, and he's not here to just tell you the like individual stories and machinations of the production crew on a TV show. It's a little bit more navel-gazing than that, which is ultimately one of the biggest flaws of this series, is when it gets a little navel-gazing, he's writing about himself.
Yeah,
better
well,
or
I think
worse.
you can still have serialized stories about these
The
people,
production.
and they can still have like interpersonal drama and stuff. It's just
But the serialized
more-
storytelling that Sorkin writes well is, here's a man who's broken and watching his life crumble to pieces. That's like the specific story type that he's again, at this time, at 07, that he's really good at.
I mean, just imagine if the whole time this had been Jack Rudolph's character, where we never saw what his personal life was like, but he just kept being one of the few constants, and we could see him just gradually having a breakdown.
Just unraveling, yeah, exactly. But Cal manages the chaos this episode, and we have a lot of plates to spin in the air tonight. We have Simon, who his plot is kind of self-isolated and not my favorite. Basically, he was dating somebody and is complaining about how he just got broken up with, like literally right before the episode started, and he's all sad about this. And him and his now ex were going to go on a double date to Hawaii with Tom and Lucy, but she broke up with him, so he doesn't have a person to go to Hawaii with him. Then she gets back with him, but also another lady that he was talking to now wants to go with him, and he's like, do you want to go to Hawaii with me while we're broken up? She says yes. He has to tell both people, and instead of lying to them and making a cartoonish like comedy of errors, he tells both of them the truth, and they both slap him, and he's left with no date.
So, this is a painful plot, but there is a moment where I thought it might actually be okay. And then it isn't.
What's
But
the moment?
where he's talking to this lady, and he's like, he's just being like, oh baby, you know it's not like that, in a way that's really like stereotypical and shitty.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, okay, seriously, let me set aside the cool guy veneer for a second.
I'll just tell you what's going on.
I really worked really hard to try to find you. I thought that was a great date. Like, yes, you're right. What I was in the middle of doing is shitty, but here I am, and this moment is sincere. And I was like, wow, okay, if this is going to be a thing about, like, Simon does a lot of, like, playing around because, like, he doesn't because he's got this reputation of playing around, and so ultimately people approach him with that expectation, and so it's honestly disingenuous on both sides of the relationship.
Mhm.
And then when he finds someone who's taking him seriously, he'll take them seriously.
Yeah.
That would be a story I could be on board with. But no, the story is just that he's such a player, and sometimes you go for two hares but catch none. It's like, shut up.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, that he really like immediately jumps on the chance with this other woman to be like, okay, actually, you come to Hawaii with me, because she's willing to like, give him the time of day and be like, okay, yeah, actually, maybe you're a legit guy. So I agree. If we had seen more of Simon being vulnerable in some way, but in this plot, everything just kind of rolls off his back. It's like, she slapped me. Oh, well, another lady slapped me 2 in one day. All right, guess I'll go to Hawaii alone. Like, nothing seems to affect him here.
Yeah.
So it ends up being a plot where, as a viewer, I'm sort of like, well, why did I watch that?
It just loops itself back. Yeah. It's
Like,
like, okay.
imagine if that scene in his dressing room with the person who just broke up with him, she was like, I thought about it, and actually I was being silly and listening to what other people said, and we should get back together. And he was like, no, actually, I think you were right. Like, obviously, I don't think I'm a shitty person, but I think this relationship started off on the wrong foot, and I think I wasn't taking it seriously. And with that kind of foundation, this isn't going to go anywhere. Maybe we could try again at some point, but right now we need to stop.
Yeah, right. Just like a little more
Adult.
And he was being honest. I mean, that is something to the plot's credit, I think. There wasn't, like Alan, you were saying, there wasn't this sort of Benny Hill thing of like he's lying to both women and running through fake doors to avoid them or whatever. He really did just decide, I'm going to tell everybody the truth.
Well,
he gets
tells-
caught in it, I guess.
Right. He starts telling the very recent ex the truth because because someone's already given away the game and is over his shoulder waving like, no, she already knows.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Lucy could not have handled that worse. She clearly said something to that woman that she shouldn't have said. And then she had no chill about it whatsoever. It was absurd.
It would have been so easy for her to be like, oh, he already invited someone else. And she's like, no, we're going. And she could have so easily been like, oh, he meant you. He didn't say who. I just assumed it was someone else. Done.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's she's kind of the Fitzwilliam Darcy of that plot line, Magellan. Or Lucy is, where she's just like, he did this thing. Wait, I wasn't supposed to say that. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't like to use the word slight that often, but I do find myself saying it a lot, especially with this show where it's B and C plots just kind of come and go. But I think if anything, if we're to take anything from this, it's that we learn that Simon is looking for the one. You know, he wants somebody who he can actually stick around with and not like when you're in Hollywood.
Maybe. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
He's looking for the one in 21 and 1 to break the streak.
Is this a wrestling thing, Six?
Yeah, of course it is.
Of course it is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's okay. I forgot my point completely.
You're saying
I have that
Simon's
power
looking
on
for the
people.
one. What we learned.
He's looking for the one, and in
plot.
Hollywood, it's hard to find because so many people want you and want your your clout.
And he's
Even
got a
to-
reputation. And he's
He's actually
acting
trying
a certain way.
Yeah, he's developing.
I mean, I think to Six's point, what this plot could have done is Simon is sort of deluding himself into thinking that he is like a reliable, serious guy, and he just keeps getting into relationships that don't last very long.
Yeah.
When in actuality, like, he is playing around and he's just not owning up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this could have been a chance for him to reflect and be like, wow, I really fucked that up. Like, really badly. A woman sort of broke up with me for 30 minutes and I found somebody else to go to Hawaii with. That's a problem. But he doesn't own that or reflect on that. And so it just ends up being like, okay, Simon didn't learn anything. So I just watched a dude be the same person for 15 minutes. I'm not super interested in that.
in one ear, out the other. Right.
Yeah, and I think really this episode across the board, the sort of like interpersonal plots are the weakest stuff. Like if y'all want to transition to talking about Harriet and Jeannie.
Not much there, but what was there was kind of bad. Yeah.
Just the whole, everything related to Jeannie, it is really frustrating to me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you can't date him. No, you should date him. No, but don't date him. Because
we've never gotten a moment of characterization for Jeannie, except that she like wanted to do the Commedia dell'arte sketch.
Yeah.
But other than that, I have no idea who Jeannie is at all. She's just a plot device. She's just like it's a hot lady that Matt had sex with. I don't know if she wants to be with Matt. I don't know if she actually is friends with Harriet. I don't know if we're supposed to like her. I don't know a thing about Jeannie at all. And so to have this continuous conversation between Harriet and Jeannie about Matt and like who's going to date him, and Harriet's giving permission and whatever, it's just exhausting. And the only thing that was redeemable about it was the fact that when Harriet was talking about it in the dressing room, everyone mocked her and was like, this is annoying.
We all know this, and everyone has been waiting for you to stop dealing with this crap. Please stop.
But they don't take the hard line that they should, honestly. They set it up. But it's like the point where she's like, well, like, you know, Matt's really worried that it'll be disruptive if we're together. Someone should be like, it can't be more disruptive than how obnoxious you two are all the time now.
Yeah, it's also bullshit because he had sex with Jeannie, who is also on the show. So I don't know
it's not less or more professional that way.
I don't know what Matt is saying about like, oh, power imbalance or whatever. Like, obviously that stuff is valid. But when you had sex with Jeannie, then you don't have a leg to stand on, my guy.
And it's like one thing to be like, okay, so Matt's full of shit, but it's like, the thing about Harriet, the way she's been portrayed, is that she just worships Matt and takes everything he says as gospel. Like, there are times when she like snaps at him, but like when they're actively in the middle of a fight and someone else calls him a narcissist, she's like, I can't let that go.
No,
It's like,
that's rude.
Shut up. That's not how humans are.
To the point where Luke is the one who had to be, like another man, had to be like, hey, you have like a weird thing with this guy. You need to decide what your relationship with this is with him. They know.
Yeah. Right.
But her stuff, yeah, it's really frustrating. And some of it's really, I mean, like Sarah Paulson always brings good like class to her character.
She's a great actor.
Yes, for sure.
And it's really annoying to see her put in this role.
As a side note, I did enjoy her comedically in both of these episodes, especially in this one when she does the Nancy Grace bit, because it's 2007 and I have nothing wrong with a goofy Nancy Grace joke. And then the punchline being not only that like we get to enjoy her doing this accent, but the prop masters put grain alcohol in her cup, and she just runs with it. And she says the prop master on the Nancy Grace show put grain alcohol in instead of my water, and it's like that's what I want Studio 60 to be as a TV program, is like watching these people improvise and flex. Which, if you'll allow me to, brings me to the best plot in the episode. Because I want to talk about this one and then end on the bomb plot, because the bomb plot kind of ends the episode. Allison Janney, the GOAT, the legend herself, is on this episode as the guest with no cue cards, and she's being fed lines by Cal through a microphone or through an earpiece that she struggles to put on, and they make a whole point about like, why is there a string coming out of it? So you can take it out. You can take it out. It's very silly. Allison Janney's amazing. That's mostly what I want to say here. Also, I believe, I don't remember exactly what the context was, but early on, they talk about how she was on another TV show, and then they're like, oh yeah, The West Wing, which, hang on, SNL exists in Studio 60 world, and The West Wing exists, but Bradley Whitford's right there. You can't.
Yep. I
can't.
had
Put the
a
cuffs on, Sorkin.
Similar reaction.
Come on.
What are you
I had a
talking
similar
about?
reaction.
That's
Studio
not,
60
Bradley
exists.
Bradley Whitford isn't in this show.
Mm-hmm. Oh, true. He's not in this
That's
episode.
Danny Tripp. What are you talking about?
Oh, Danny Tripp's. Yeah, you're right. This is the conversation that I would have with Aaron Sorkin. I'm like, Aaron, why is Bradley Whitford in both? And he's like, no, it's not. It's Danny Tripp.
So many things made me annoyed that The West Wing exists in Studio 60 universe, which maybe I shouldn't be that annoyed about it, but it is really annoying.
If The West Wing doesn't exist, then Allison Janney's like not a household name in 2007. So it has to exist. But then if it exists, then several other actors from it are on this.
But then it very easily, you could have made the choice to give Allison Janney a character where she's basically the same person as Allison Janney, and she just like has a fictional name or something.
Yeah.
But the thing that bugs me, because I like to get bugged by things, is there was a whole hullabaloo earlier in the season about how Jordan was taking a chance on that guy who wanted to make the show about the United Nations,
Yes.
which was so clearly meant to be a stand-in for like the West Wing.
Mm-hmm.
But now the West Wing exists in this world, so everyone who criticized Jordan for doing that is a moron,
is
because the
crow,
West Wing exists in this world. And also Jordan is dumb for being like, yeah, my bold TV move is to rip off the West Wing.
Well, I mean, listen, it was like, I don't think it's 1-to-1, because the premise of that show was like, what if it's just a show that exists in the halls of the UN where most people don't speak the same language? Like, it is still a pretty different pitch.
Sure, but the idea,
still a nod.
The like point of it was, oh, check out Jordan McDear. She's going to take chances on like dramatic shows on prime time. Nobody else is doing that. And it's like, but wait a minute.
I just wanted them to skew the reality a little bit more and be like, yeah, my classic memorable character from the West Wing, J.C. Craig. And you're like, wait, And the people who haven't watched that show because it's been off the air for a couple of years are like, was that the name? Like,
It's CJ Craig.
I know that's the joke that they flipped
JC
it.
Craig is the character from Deus Ex.
JC Craig is where I buy my jeans.
Any more jokes we got? Or
JC Craig is my favorite member of NSYNC.
thank you. Ooh, that one's actually really good. Usually the third one's bad. Can I get one more? I want to get a bad one.
It's a bomb.
That's pretty good. That's still pretty good.
Yeah. I am going to again posit that the disaster show of Studio 60 in universe is the funniest Studio 60 in universe episode that we've seen. And not like laugh at it like everything's going bad funny.
Yeah.
But the things that they show us of like, oh my God, it's a disaster. The monologue where it's like Allison Janney can't remember what show she's on or the city she's in because
I like
she's
that.
like a big time actress and doesn't give a crap about anybody. That's actually a fine monologue premise, first of all. Second of all, the scene that we see where she's with Tom Jeter, she seemed to do every sketch with Tom Jeter.
He's the only actor on the whole show.
something.
You talking about the one with the wallet?
The one
Or
with
the
the
squibs.
wallet, yeah, where she goes to bribe the car.
James Bond.
What's the car? You know when you get
The valet.
to your car valet.
The valet. Oh no,
and-
James Bond was the script. Yeah.
And she opens her wallet and there's no money in it, and she offers the wallet itself.
Very
That's actually
funny.
a funny joke.
Funnier than just doing the money. Yes.
And then the squibs thing where she like does all the actions of getting hit by bullets, but nothing goes off is funny. And then the fact that it actually happens in a later sketch is something that SNL would never be smart enough to do.
Especially
It's actually
so
a genius callback.
the thing that would make it perfect is if Tom Jeter, who's good at improvising, had then like turned to the audience and been like, well, she lasted longer than the last broad.
Yeah, there you go.
Because James Bond just kills women left
Just kills
and right.
women. Yeah, totally. And then she's like, "Wait, I'm actually not dead, mother." Yeah, this is a better
And then
show.
just like putting a pillow over her face and pushing, too bad she's dead. Oh gosh.
It's definitely funnier than Pimp My Tricycle or Modern Major TV Show or whatever the fuck the good stuff is
But
supposed
not
to
better
be.
than Nicolas Cage. I
No.
love
Oh
when
my
he does
God.
those
Was it
different
this episode or the
jobs.
second one that we saw Nicolas Cage again?
It's mostly the second one. Yeah.
Why can't they just not make, what's his name? Simon Helberg?
Yes. Good job.
Why do they have to make him come back just to do that? They don't give him any role as like
He's never
a
in
cast
the
member.
show.
He's never talking to anybody. They only hire him for a day to come do Nicolas Cage sketches, and he looks miserable.
Right.
It sucks.
And he does those and does them extended, like for an extended period. And in one of these, he does like the cooking bit, and it's like a lot of this is based on like knowing who Nicolas Cage is and what he was up to in the news, which doesn't age really well. And it's just it's not fun to watch at all. It's not funny. It's not fun. But again, yeah, Allison Janney, and that Scripps joke legitimately got a laugh out of me when she does the like, oh wait, I'm alive.
Yeah,
Thought
that's
that
actually
was-
funny.
Top tier work.
Yeah, she sort of like leans on her arm and is like, I expected you to shoot.
Ultimately, the joke though being at the end when she's like, "Tom Jeter, why are you not worried that the show is falling apart?" And they're like, "Oh, because you're the guest, we don't have to care that it's going bad because everyone will just say it's your fault." Is like, I think that's funny. It's a little mean, but also Tom's an asshole, and
Yeah.
everyone on the show is kind of shitty. So like, I get it. But I don't know. I thought that part was kind of weird, especially because like Sorkin is clearly or presumably at least well acquainted with, if not friends with, Allison Janney. So to have her on and be like, yeah, we're just gonna have everyone roast you and like ruin your life. It's like, I would like to do a role like that. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that seems fun. He's like, "Hey, Allison, can you be like the diva fictional version of yourself that tells your assistant to like keep a list of people that you're upset with?" Or
yeah.
whatever.
The running gag of the list is excellent. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
I thought that was pretty honest to how people would probably process that in the moment of there being a disaster show. Just that attitude of like, yeah, well, it's happening, so might as well ride the ride and enjoy it while it's happening.
Yes. If you would say, yeah, this is fine. We deal with it every day. That's the whole point of it being live. If it wasn't live, then we would never make mistakes, or we wouldn't keep the mistakes. But it's more specifically that he's like, well, it's going to be, they're all going to blame it on you anyway, so we don't care. Is where I'm like, ooh, you got to get a little dig in.
Yeah, it's a
on
little
here.
sassy, but like you said, Tom is probably the
He's the
person
character
who
to deliver
could
that.
deliver
And
it,
also, he's been added to the list like 7 times by now. So
Yes,
he's gotta
yeah,
strike
he's-
back somehow.
True. And she's also probably, in a lot of ways, more successful than he is, too. So it's like, you're fine. You're rich. Like,
One of my biggest smirks of the episode was around that scene when Harriet, to Allison Janney, mimics her being shot by the bullets
Yes.
and does like a little bullet dance.
And like wiggles out of frame.
It's so good. When you give Sarah Paulson like goofy things to do, it brings the biggest smile to my face. Like the dolphin laugh and the whatever joke she had that she couldn't tell, stuff like that. It's just, she's so good at these like light, silly things.
It's a very 90s joke for her to make, but I still do like her going, I'm going to make it my screensaver.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I was like,
Yeah.
oof, this got dated, but I like it in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah. The Scrubs rewatch podcast that Alan and I listen to, Fake Doctors, Real Friends, they just made their theme song a ringtone that people could download in 2020. It's like,
And you can purchase, and I'm like,
who's buying ringtones anymore?
They made a big deal about like we got multiple versions of it with all the different edits, and it's like I in like probably 30 seconds could open your podcast on Audacity and make that. Like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
I haven't heard my phone make a noise since 2012.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
or make it like a ring. You mean? Yeah.
Well,
wanna-
I
you
don't.
wanna-
I,
you wanna
I'm
hear-
on silent. I don't have vibrate either. So.
You want to hear what I got here?
Oh, you have a
What
ringtone?
you got?
I made it myself.
Upriser. Is it? You gonna do that? Ooh.
Oh, I've heard this. You've told me about this.
This is the ringtone in-game from Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon.
Oh, that's
You get
a
a call from the
pull.
professor.
That's a nice pull. That's a good
It's really
ringtone.
good.
It's a jam.
My ringtone was made by the guy who made the soundtrack for Samurai Gun. He was like selling ringtones on his Bandcamp for like 99 cents, and there's just like a fun little ditty that I use as mine. But again, I haven't had my ringer on in forever.
It goes like do 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 do.
Do-do-do-do-do. Yeah, I pay. That's a premium. That's
My
a very
ringtone
nice
is the default.
Apex.
What?
Ooh,
the
I like
hell?
that. That's
That's
one of the
default?
defaults. That's one of
Okay.
the defaults. Yes.
One
yes.
of the defaults. Okay.
It's called reflection parentheses default.
Beautiful.
Well,
Oh, you know, I changed mine because I've moved phones so many times. You want to know what mine is right now since we're just doing this?
sure.
No.
I'm such a boomer, y'all. I'm
No,
such a boomer.
No,
Going to hell.
No,
Sorry.
no.
I'm
What's
going to hell
everybody's
for that.
screensaver? Why don't we do screensavers anymore?
Because your computer just goes to sleep.
It just
yeah,
goes.
you're right.
Yeah.
What was everybody's favorite screensaver?
The
I like
maze.
the maze. Yeah.
Yes.
With the smiley face.
You
I
can't
like
be a
the-
gamer
I like
without
pipes.
enjoying a maze.
I like the pipes.
Pipes was good. Pipes is my second favorite. I like the maze. I liked Windows XP had one where the Windows logo would like get spiky and then circular and be a ball.
Oh yeah.
That was
Yeah.
really satisfying.
Anybody else
Yeah.
here old enough for the flying toasters?
No, sorry.
I'm sorry.
That was a classic. It's
I was
too
born
bad.
in 2017, so I don't.
Yeah.
That
recognize
does limit things a bit.
Yeah, and now we have like backgrounds for everything. That's the more like customization focus that we do. We should talk about the bomb threat plot because it's technically the A plot of the episode, even though it doesn't. It's not.
It's the
that-
A plot? What?
I thought the Allison Janney.
Allison Janney's the A plot.
in terms of time devoted to it. I
Allison
guess yeah.
Janney's always the A plot. Doesn't
True,
matter
in my
what you
heart.
do.
In my heart, yes. So,
I mean,
okay,
her name starts with an A.
A Janie, yeah.
The
wait,
bomb
mine
threat
starts
plot
with
is
an
so useless. But I mean, in a nutshell, we learn that someone has called in a bomb threat, and it's because of a sketch that's about Muhammad. What was the sketch called again? They say it, and it's like a stupid name.
It's like Thin Muhammad or something.
Muhammad, the
Thin-
thin-skinned
thin-skinned.
prophet. And it's apparently going to someone who's going to be played by Tom Jeter. So
Of course.
there are layers of problems there. And their reaction to there being a bomb threat is like, we're just going to keep doing the show. And Jack Rudolph's like, hey, if people die, we're going to lose a lot of money. So I'm just
line
going
is-
to go home.
He says, "You think what do you think if we leave everybody here? What do you think about the bomb threat? Like, what is that going to do to our insurance deposit?" And then he has to have someone tell him, like, also people would get hurt. And he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, sure." It's
I
great.
do.
That's
My
good.
favorite thing of the plot is I do enjoy seeing Jack Rudolph and Cal interact with each other and play off each
Yeah.
other because they're the two sassiest characters on the whole show.
I think that's
but-
true. Yeah.
But other than that, we learn that there's like a phone. Somebody called from their phone, and then they lost their phone and left it. And then the FBI called them on their or whatever. They did something and got the teenage boys to come get their phone. And then
It's
it's
two
like,
teenage
it was
white
a
boys
fake
who were
bomb
like, we
threat.
thought it would be funny. We want to get on the news. Don't tell my mom.
And it's like, again, the plot here is sort of like, why did you make this? What happened? Nothing happened in this plot. We completely went back to where we started. It wasn't funny. You're not saying anything daring about bomb threats. I guess what's happening is Sorkin is sort of saying like, ooh, you thought that I was going to do a thing about the Muhammad sketch. You had a racist thought, but no, as a white teenager, I guess maybe that's what it's about.
Well, I think that's like the punchline, but I think mostly it's just about adding one more layer of chaos to the disaster. It's
Yeah.
about having something distracting Cal so that he like fails to make transitions and stuff.
I see.
Yeah, and
Sure.
they're like, we went 10 seconds with dead air, and he's like, oh shit, which is awesome.
Or having the one moment in this that I enjoyed. I don't even think it's necessarily good. I just enjoyed it, which is when they bring in the bomb sniffing dog and he tells it to sit and it doesn't listen. And then the officer repeats it in German, and he says, "The dog speaks German."
The German Shepherd speaks German.
And he's like, "Only German." And then it's the moment where Cal just goes, "Okay."
That was the actor reacting. There was no script there. That was just
Just
pure
the sincere, like, I don't
All
know
right.
why I'm here. I don't understand anything right now. I want this
wanna
conversation
leave.
to end.
I want to go. I want to get
all encapsulated in. Okay.
A line I really liked from that plot was, I think it's the teenage boys. It's like, how did you figure this out? Or somebody asks like, how did you figure this out? And Jack Rudolph says, well, the FBI's open on Fridays.
on Fridays. It's quick. It's a quick line, but it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, Jack Rudolph is a good part of that. And if anything, my take on this one is Sorkin has done a couple episodes, including the next one, that become, quote, a very special episode of Studio 60. And this kind of sets it up like that's going to be like, this is a comedic version of what basically the whole setup for the second episode is. Where in this one, it's like all this stuff is going on, but really there's a bomb threat going on. And that's what we should care about. But they're not going to do a bomb on this TV show. Like, that's so dumb and bad and over dramatic. But what they will do is a hostage situation in Iraq. So it's kind of like a comedic version of what we end up doing in the next one. So I thought it was fun to pair these. I know we like to on chats examine how the episodes pair, and I thought that was the most telling thing was that this one doesn't take itself too seriously, and the second one kind of does. But yeah, again, I think it's mostly Jack Rudolph that just brings the heat in that plot line. And I also noted that it was dumb that Muhammad is being played by Tom Jeter in that sketch, but of course he is. And yeah, maybe this is just more timely at the time. I mean, I remember Helmagellan in our middle school. I think there was at least one bomb threat, if not multiple.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was like, were we taken out of school for those, or were they just kind of talked about and then we?
I think there was one. I remember there was one that maybe happened while we were there, and I think there was another one that was like tomorrow there's going to be a bomb.
Yeah.
And some parents chose to keep their kids home, and some didn't.
Yes.
And obviously, we didn't explode, so
No, it didn't.
we're okay.
I wonder, and they talk about this too, because that's like the other moral message of this episode is the kid says like, wait, why are you guys just going to cart me off to like be arrested? Aren't bomb threats a big deal? And he's like, you would think so, but they're really not. Like, you might as well have Jack Rudolph turn to screen and be like, they are at least, because he asks the FBI guy like, how many bomb threats do you get a day in the city? And he's like, 8. Every single day we get,
because
or
they
he
have
says
5
6.
dogs.
Right. Oh yeah, that's we have 5
Can't
dogs.
you get a second dog? No, they're all busy. How many bomb threats do you get? 6. Huh.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, 6 threats a day in a city is like kind of ridiculous if you think about it. But at the time, especially with like the state that America's like anxiety about terrorism and whatnot, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's another one of those that's like, oh, this is like a little dated. Also, less likely nowadays that people forget their phones places, I think. But it still
No.
happens.
Yeah, I think
No.
so.
Just because you have it, like you're always using you be on that phone, as the people say.
So,
you know?
unlike Magellan, my mom doesn't listen to this podcast. No.
Okay.
I don't think my mom listens to this particular one.
Not yet, but
Yeah.
Maybe someday.
I'm just saying, my mom forgets her phone
Oh, okay.
everywhere.
Drag her.
No,
Drag
honestly, older
your
folks
mom.
definitely do. No, like my coworker is older than me. I'm not going to say how old, but they forgot their phone yesterday, and we're like, yeah, it's fine. And I'm like, what? And it's like,
yeah.
I would be fine. I would ultimately be fine with it, but I would definitely stress out big time.
I would be okay for a little while, and then I'd realize I was going to miss a day of check-in for Girls Frontline, and I would explode.
6, buddy. Love, my friend. Oh, shit. It's almost raid time in Sinnoh Alice. Another
Wow.
gotcha game. Cool. Well, Magellan, what are your 3 notes on this episode?
I don't have any.
What the fuck? No, stop. Come on. Bring back the 3 notes.
No, we
I
did it.
don't have any. This episode was very short.
We did the jokes.
We did the news. I never don't laugh thinking about that fucking scene. It's just the delivery of it, everything. Everyone go watch the newsroom. You have basically the newsroom is required viewing before Studio 60. I'm sorry to say. Okay, you're back. You watched all of the newsroom. Damn, what a great big man that Charlie Skinner. What a great big man with big wings and flaming lips.
Alan, I will kick your ass. I don't care how many protein bars you eat.
Okay, you're a goddamn newsman, 6 step.
I gotta watch the newsroom again.
No.
Oh, crap.
Jonah's brain worms, everyone. We're here to talk about episode 18 of Studio 60. It's called Breaking News. Oh, newsroom.
Newsroom. Yeah.
This one was also written by.
Pretty
This
bad.
one's actually got some more simple credits. It doesn't have screenplay credits. It was just
You know
written by
what's annoying
Sorkin.
about that title, by the way, is that title has no relevance until the last 5 minutes.
It's a specter. It's a sort of Damocles, actually.
Ooh, whoa. All right.
I'm blushing right now. So Breaking News is written by Sorkin, directed by Andrew Bernstein, and it aired May 31st, 2007. John, can you tell me what happened in this episode?
I would love to, but I'm still reeling from you referencing the sword of Damocles.
I'm more embarrassed with why I was thinking about it, but go off, King. The Shrieking
is
Shack talks about it a lot. Like ZC says it a lot. I don't even listen to the Shrieking Shack anymore, but they've referenced it a lot. The point is, I know how to use it. I feel smart for being able to use it correctly.
Yeah, it was good. In this episode, Jordan experiences an emergency with her pregnancy during the live show when she suddenly cannot feel her baby kick. However, an even larger emergency is unfolding for Tom, whose brother is involved in a hostage crisis. Amidst all this, Matt's pill use gets discovered as he deals with the continuous presence of Mary Tate.
Now this that is a misleading sentence. It doesn't say this, but you're reading that, you're like, oh, so Mary Tate discovers it. No, she just happens to also be in the building.
Yeah, she's just around.
Oh, okay. So all
I
right.
was really riding a high of like, boy,
The
that
last
first
one?
episode was light. It was fun. I had some laughs, and then the previously on hits for this episode, and it's like, remember
pregnancy,
dating. Bills. Welcome back.
Sunday. No, please. It's rough.
And then it like fucking starts with Jordan talking to Jack about Hallie Galloway, and I'm like, why are all the horrible things coming back at once?
It's really, yeah. I think overall,
my
this episode's
God.
much weaker than the first one. It has like, a lot of redeeming moments to me. I didn't like outright dislike it. I think I'm developing like a sort of tolerance to Studio 60, if that makes sense. Where I'm like, all right, they're going to handle this badly. Here comes the part where it gets over dramatic. Like there was moments in the last 5 minutes where they're like running and the music is kicking in where I'm like, yeah, if I cared more, I would really be affected by this. Like, terrorism. Okay.
Yeah, it's that Sorkin thing of like, even when it's bad, you still don't regret watching it.
Yeah. I'm just like, this is fine.
It still entertains. It's just sometimes it's not good.
This is inoffensive to me because there are other things in this episode that are definitely offensive. But the overall plot culminating in that is like, I totally see someone writing this in a script and saying that's pretty clever, because the whole idea basically is that like you were saying in the summary, there's all this stuff going on and all of it is coming to a head, and we realize that none of it really matters because the thing that was going on in the background is actually tangible and something to be more stressed about actively. But we still have to we have to balance all these plates. That's what Studio 60 is about. So we have a lot of different drama bubbling under the surface. We start with the most important plot line, which is Herb saying, what was it again? Studio City on the Sunset Strip. Totally reasonable mistake. Even though Matt is like, it's the one job you have every week is to just say the name of the show. How do you get it wrong? I would totally get it wrong like several weeks in a row. Especially when you have to do it for dress and then do it for the show like every single week. You're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Be nice to her is what I'm saying. And they use that to come back during like a serious Matt Albee drug reveal. And he's like, oh, I said the name wrong. He's like, yeah, you did, Herb. Anyways, here's my pants. Yeah, and they do it with the really bad. I did not like the music guest in that episode. Because I believe in the first one it was Macy Gray, who's like pretty good.
Yeah.
Very 07. But then this one it was this like alternative band that I was like, this is like long-haired man on a piano, and there's literally a scene where Harriet is talking to Mary Tate, and she's like, that band's really good. I like them. And it's supposed to be her being like, trying to make a casual analysis and not talk about the important thing, but I didn't like that music at all. And the other thing that we think we're all going to be really worried about is ratings. It's hilarious to me that the way they develop the ratings plot is Jack Rudolph tells somebody that he bought a company, and he's like, actually, I bought 5% of a company, and they make a machine, get this, it has a database of comedy and movies, and we can make movies better, and we can, most importantly, make sketch comedy funny. What is this farcical? I would love it. I would love it if a machine existed like this that can make all my jokes funny, dude. Are you kidding me? Make my podcasts good?
That was a good podcast.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, podcaster robot.
To make it better, you could, I don't know, maybe take that shirt off, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
What have you got working under there?
Well, shit.
The robots have spoken.
Perhaps remove your shirts.
Consider getting naked. Thank you. It's just a horny.
No. Leave the pants on.
Leave the pants, just the shirt.
No.
Pants and no shirt is the peak of hot, but leaving a little bit, what's happening.
We love mystery.
Leave the cannoli. Take the cannoli. Sorry, I got the line wrong. But yeah, all this rating stuff. It's interesting to me how we talk about ratings and they're like, 4.5. It went down 30,000. All like numbers and numbers in this episode. And I don't care. But I do care about all the stuff in the first episode about like the prop master and the unions. I think it's because ratings we just now understand, especially like talking about television, like matter to the network, but don't matter to the people making the show. And they do discuss that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things in this episode that feel inside baseball-y to the point of it being kind of obtuse. Mm-hmm. Like the ratings stuff, I mean, I think I've only ever heard about ratings in the context of, like Dan Harmon is like, wow, they were upset that they're not getting a good enough ratings. Or that's only ever people complaining about it.
Yeah, or the show was canceled because of bad ratings, yeah.
Yeah, and so... I think we just have a natural animosity to the concept of ratings that makes it so that I don't really want to listen to a plot about it. And also the fact that the contrived reason the ratings are bad is that genius Matt Albee is on drugs right now.
So he's writing episodes late.
Yeah, which is also annoying. And then the other thing that's inside baseball is the whole thing with Mary Tate about... She's like getting into this really specific case of Matt Albee. So basically it's the same situation where there's the woman who's suing NBS. And she's like, because she had she was harassed in Ricky and Ron's writer's room. Which is the worst children's show I've ever heard of.
Yeah, exactly.
But... apparently at some point someone called Matt on the phone and was like, hey, there's this lady in our writer's room and we think that she's not good. And Matt was like, yeah, she sounds like she's not good at her job or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he was just like saying that to have a conversation. And apparently that means that now he could be sued too. And it's this whole thing where Mary Tate's like excited about the prospect of fighting that and taking it all the way to the Supreme Court. And she's like, isn't this fucked up that this can happen in California? And Jordan's like, yeah, that is fucked up. I'm a lawyer too. And the whole time you're sitting in the audience like, who is invested in this? I don't care about this.
Really embarrassedly raising my hand.
Okay. To change my mind.
I really liked this in a couple of ways.
Okay.
One, I like the fact that this is one of those cases where I don't know if Sorkin knows this, but where Matt is clearly just in the wrong here.
Yes.
Completely. Yes.
Matt was called up by a person being like, hey, we have this person who used to work at your studio. Do you have any recommendation? And Matt internally is like, well, I've never heard this name before. I don't know who she is, any of her work. And then it out loud is like, I guess I might as well shit talk her. Like, yeah, you deserve to get sued then. And then I also really like Mary Tate in here being like, this is wonderful. This is such a disaster. I get to go to the Supreme Court. And I read everything else she's doing as just like being giddy on the like intellectual high of getting to go to the Supreme Court.
That's actually cute. Yeah.
And I think that's great.
Well, that also explains the like repeated flirting that she does with Matt Albee, which is like comically inappropriate, but very funny considering that she's like, this is all, none of this is going to blow up in my face. You guys are getting shut down.
It was so not the way that a person would talk, and very much like, oh, the genius man is like luring this unbelievably talented and intelligent and funny woman that is so much better than him in real life. But he's like the genius protagonist. So of course she's attracted to him. But I was still entertained through the whole thing and still like, yeah, Mary Tate, get yours, girl.
I mean, the thing is, she doesn't treat him like anybody else treats him. Like she is she is really fun and playful. She has a little bit of like manic pixie dream girl energy, right?
Yeah,
but like everybody treats him like he's a genius, and she treats him like he's an adorable himbo, and it's so fun.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's you start to appreciate the lack of realism, and also like, yeah, once you accept that, like, yeah, just Sorkin doesn't write women realistically. It's like, well, he knows how to make them entertaining, whether or not he intended to or not. I'm like having fun watching her, like twist this plot around in her fingers and be like, you guys are all fucked. I'm gonna get paid.
I really enjoyed. There's some moment where she was talking about how, there's a whole beat which I actually thought was funny in how willing they were to pause on this, where she's trying to talk to him and then he's like, wait. And in the background, you can see the monitor in his office and they're silently watching the sketch be bad. And the audience
like,
laughs,
hold on,
but doesn't laugh, doesn't laugh quite enough. Which I thought was actually a pretty silly beat. Maybe intentionally so. And then she's like leaving the room and telling him that she thought it was funny. And then she's like, I have an IQ of like 210. It's ridiculous. Like, just so you know, I'm very smart.
Yeah.
I
like it, but like it's bad, right? It's bad writing there. But she's just having so much fun. I'm along for the ride with her. Like later when she's talking to Harriet, she's like, man, this is such a disaster. I would do this one for free. And Harriet is like kind of like bitterly like, yeah, but you're not. And she's like, I know, isn't it great?
Yeah. I think Mary Tate's the best part of the episode.
I think so too. I mean, I'm looking at my notes right now, and all of my stuff about like Matt drug stuff into Tom Jeter Iraq stuff is like, I wasn't a fan of any of that. So yeah, I think the Mary Tate's the best. And I didn't mean to blow our best plot first, but that was definitely.
Should we
like
talk about drug stuff? Because I feel like that's going to be a big conversation.
I think we should save it. I think that's going to be okay. The rest of my notes are ostensibly we have the Jordan stuff, we have the drug stuff, and then we have Iraq. So I think we should do them in that order. Okay. Basically, with Jordan McTeer is back. And she's still very pregnant. We're still doing jokes about how she really likes orange juice, which is a joke. And this is the first time they finally were like, okay, pregnancy's like hungry or like has a craving, things are annoying. And then they're like, no, it's because she's afraid. There's an actual reason this time, which is that she's having this dinner at the wrap party with Danny Tripp. And he's like, why do you want so much orange juice? And she says, well, I didn't feel the baby kicking. So when I drink orange juice, usually he starts kicking again. And he's like, oh, I got to be a serious parent for a second. Hold on. We got to stop this rap party and take you into and you think they're just going to go straight to the emergency room, but it's like, no. We're going to go to a closet and I'm going to put a stethoscope on and I'm going to pretend I'm a doctor and try to like feel your baby kicking, which he can't tell because he's like, I feel it kicking. And she's like, that's my heart rate. And as he tries to take her to the emergency room, the stuff with Tom happens. And I do like the way they handled this, where they're like, because I've had moments in my life, not to like get too personal, but where like multiple tragedies are happening at once and like some are happening in the background. And you can't forget about everything. You can't just ignore the like struggles going on, but like there are things that outwardly you have to take precedence. So they're like, okay, like make sure Tom is okay, make sure his parents get here, all of that. As soon as everyone else leaves, he's like, go to this take this assistant, drive her to the hospital. She could die or her baby could be dead. Like, let's fucking go. I thought it was handled well. I think this is our chance to see Danny Tripp be the parent that he wants to be so badly, or like be the sort of like on top of his shit. It's frustrating then that Danny also has to be a parent in a way to Matt Albee, who is caught with drugs this episode by Suzanne. Mm-hmm. Basically, I mean, we should definitely talk sensitively about this stuff, but Suzanne in a scene that's kind of melodramatic in the like Dare PSA way is like, Danny, or it's like, Matt, I know you've been doing drugs. And he's like, yes, I have been doing drugs. And he doesn't do the like, this is the part where it's better than Dare, because he does say like, yes, I've been doing them. And she's like, yeah, my mom did them. And he's like, yeah, well, I'll stop. I'm going to run out soon and then I'm going to stop. And she's like, she has the line, which is dark, but, pretty straightforward. She says, when I was 8, my mom said the same thing. And then when I was 9, she slit her wrists, which is intense. But I think the actress who plays Suzanne is like doing the best she can with that line. It's fucking hard to be the person telling someone that.
Yeah, I think Mariette Wever really does a really good job with what she's given. This who plays Suzanne does a really good job with her role this episode. It is a little like, as you say, like after school special, a little too much in that way, but I think her performance is pretty admirable. I think that the way she portrays it as her being like, I know that this is the kind of thing where I have to be really careful and how I speak to you. So like really like downcast eyes and speaking really carefully, but also like very skeptical that you'll just say whatever it takes to get out of the conversation.
Right. And that's why later when she's like, yeah, I told Danny, too bad. Like I told him and he's going to help you. And she's like, yep, you're going to go through withdrawals. Yep. It's going to be worse than doing drugs. Yep. It's going to suck. And she explains chemically, biologically, and accurately, I will say, why withdrawals do feel worse than being on drugs. Which is sad. Matt is hiding the pills in the bottom of a bottle of Flintstones vitamins, which they use just for the punchline of I like the Barney ones a lot later. I think this stuff works entirely because of Bradley Whitford, actually. I think I forgot who the actor who plays Matt Albee is.
Matthew Perry? Yeah,
Matthew Perry is definitely doing his best with like, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to like tell you I'm going to stop. I'm just going to be honest with you. And he says, when it's hiatus, I'm going to stop. He says like, I need to feel something, which is a very unfortunate, very, very common reason that people get into drug abuse is because they feel very numb, or they feel like they're running a million miles an hour and they need to slow down, or they need to keep up with the hectic pace of Hollywood. Totally get that. Mm-hmm. But it's when Danny comes in his room after Suzanne tells him, and this is one of those like, I would put it, if I was Bradley Whitford, I would put it on my acting reel kind of scenes, like really good, or like on his Oscar reel, where he's like doing the parent giving their kid a carton of cigarettes because they caught them smoking one sort of thing, where he's like, if you're going to do it right, because once you stop, it's going to suck. So just start smoking it, start crushing the time release, start doing all the stuff, and become a drug addict. He doesn't tell him to stop. He doesn't yell at him. He does like, eventually say, give me the pills and all that. But yeah, Bradley Whitford has a history with this stuff. And it's clear that this is like coming from a real place, both from Sorkin writing it, from Whitford acting it. This is like a plot. Like I feel like I expected this to come out of Studio 60 for a while, but it's surprising to see here.
You actually have it backwards.
Is it?
Matthew Perry's the one with the history.
I feel like I've read both. But Matthew Perry definitely has the more serious history. So yeah, in that case there is an aspect too of like I'm talking to the actor as much as I'm talking to the character a little bit. But we don't know what the status of Matthew Perry's like addiction process or recovery, whatever, was at the time of this episode. How do you even write a plot line like this? If you're Aaron Sorkin, if you're writing for Matthew Perry, I mean, we talk a lot about on this podcast how it feels like they're doing therapy for themselves, or Sorkin particularly is working through relationship drama, and it's like that's something that's a little bit. It's kind of captivating about Sorkin work is that you're like seeing him just nakedly on the screen and his friends and family on the screen a little bit in a way that's like uncomfortable. Like he doesn't shy away from talking about this stuff. I think I give him credit for that, honestly.
I feel I mean, like, it's weird because I don't know, like, these are issues that Sorkin's also had, right? So he is writing from a position of experience. Part of my problem, and it's because, like, I don't know how much to hold this because I used to smoke, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very different drug I was on.
But
part of this for me is the moment where he's like, where Danny's like, you know, it didn't make you better, it made you worse, right?
Yeah.
Part of the problem, smoking did make me better. I was a better writer after smoking a cigarette. And that's part of why it was so hard. Like, I didn't have a super hard time quitting, right? I was fortunate in a lot of ways. We don't need to get into but like, part of what made it more hard than it could have been was like, but I do write better.
Right.
And taking that tension away makes it just like, okay, well, it's just the wrong thing to do, and it's also not even doing what I got it there for.
Yeah.
Which feels a little too after school special to me. I think it would be better if it was like, no, listen, I know it actually is helping you, at least in the short term, but this is too destructive.
And it seems like Matt Albee, I mean, maybe we're going to see him relapse in an episode or two, but it seems like in this episode, he's like, yeah, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, and it's a really weak resolution.
Yeah.
Ooh, I did make the bad decision of typing in Matthew Perry drugs, and now I'm sad. I don't remember years of filming Friends because of how high I was all the time. 3 years. Oh, okay. I'm gonna stop reading.
I mean, you can see it when you watch Friends. His weight fluctuates wildly. And
really,
he looks really high and unhealthy in a variety of different ways. Yeah,
there you go. It's just all on the screen, and like I think there's value in that. I think like myself, we're all here in some way or shape or form, writers, aspiring writers, whatever you want to say, and I would like to be able to tell a story this personal about my life and like get it on a network show and get people to perform it beautifully with like beautiful music like this, but it must be somewhat uncomfortable to just be like, yes, Matthew Perry, I want you to talk about how you're going to stop and how you know you're going to hate withdrawal and all that. Like having to tell a professional actor to do that. But it's just one of those things, especially as like critics, like how much can we speak to the background of this? You know, we understand a certain amount of it and they've been pretty open about it, whereas a lot of actors cannot be and aren't, and we don't know about a lot of these stories. But
I think something that's also kind of squandered in this plot, I do think that it's, I found it affecting, and I also thought that her name is Suzanne. Is that his personal assistant?
Career assistant, yep.
I thought that it was a really good choice that it was her who found out. And Six, like you were saying, that she's having to kind of figure out the power dynamics and figure out what's okay to say. And it made it really impactful that she was brave enough to speak up to Matt, who has been an overbearing boss to her in the past. So those dynamics I thought were strong, and I thought that actually this deepened the Matt-Suzanne relationship to a relationship that actually has substance and isn't just like, I don't know, kind of dorky and jokey. But I thought what was squandered here somewhat was the sort of irony that in the first episode we're shown Danny Tripp, and Danny Tripp is like the guy with the quote unquote drug problem, right? And Matt Albee is like, although Matt Albee is high in the first episode, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So all right, because I had forgotten about that, but it sort of is. I can't quite get a read on, like, has Matt had problems with drugs before? Is this like the worst that it's ever been for him, or has he been at a low like this prior to this point? Because if it was set up as like Danny Tripp has had his problems, and Matt has always been a kind of like lightly recreational drug user who has never, fallen this deep in the hole, then you could do a plot about Danny having to kind of coach Matt through what's going on and get him out of it, and see Matt go through the things that he went through and sort of be like, I know the patterns. I know what you're going to do next. Now you're going to do this. Now you're going to do that. You're not going to believe me now, but this is what's going to happen. And we could see Matt kind of actually do those things. But I think that the Matt and Danny aspect of it is not fully crystallized. And so that part of it didn't feel that powerful to me, or as powerful as it could have.
I think, Magellan, that was the plan. Like, the feeling I get is that was what they wanted to do. I mean, that's such an obvious course of action. And then they got told they were being canceled. And they were like, shit, we need to resolve this quickly. We have other things we want to focus on.
That's a good point.
We're gonna hit the accelerate button on the Matt Albee drug stuff because we don't have a lot of season left.
Right. We've got 4 episodes left before the show is gone forever. Maybe let's not
because
spend it on drugs.
if you knew you were getting a season 2, you would end season 1 with like Matt Albee in a ditch somewhere or something. Mm-hmm. Like, what's going to happen to him? But I guess you can't do that if you know you're going to get canceled.
Yeah. And okay, I guess this is the reason I find this drug stuff more affecting than Tom's plot is a couple things. One, the Tom plot is very time specific, like a terrorist Iraq bomb plot, which I think we should talk about now, is very 07, very relevant. Like, Sorkin is often awkward when it comes to talking about the present, right? Also, I'm trying to articulate exactly what I'm trying to get at here. It felt to me like I expected something watching Tom and his plot develop, because if you follow Tom, knowing that this episode ends with him realizing that his brother was taken hostage by terrorists, you watch him and you think maybe he knows and he's trying not to worry about it. Like, it actually reads like he's being avoidant. He's obsessing over the ratings. He's talking about how he's in love with Lucy. He's, trying to progress that relationship. He's trying to be a good actor and worrying about like this specific line delivery, which feels so petty. So for me, I was like,
that's the kind of stuff that people obsess over, though.
Yeah, that is the kind of stuff people obsess over. But that's like, if I'm like worried about something in my personal life and I'm trying not to think about it, I would too. I would also like fixate on other things in my work, because that's a way for me to cope. But he doesn't know about that, so it kind of just makes the rest of his plotline be like kind of clean dramatic irony. I was talking to Six before we started recording about how when he talks to Simon about Lucy, and he's like, I struggle a lot out here and I'm really sad all the time, but when I see her, I'm happy. That is the like 1 week from retirement line of like something bad. You're either going to die, Lucy's going to die, or break up with you. Something bad's about to happen to you. It has to. Yeah. So that's them like placing the smoking gun down, and then the end being like, actually, it isn't anything locally happening. It's happening to your brother.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to think about the brother development, because there is something to be said for like, if you just spend the whole episode about something else and then you drop that at the end, that makes the viewer feel the kind of like surprise and shock that Tom would feel in that situation.
True.
But like you were saying, it also makes his arc in the episode feel pretty lopsided, to where you sort of are following him and don't really know why, and then it almost feels cheap to be kind of like I don't know, roundhouse kicked with your brother is a hostage, whatever it is.
Bland.
So well, but they set it up pretty, like, I mean, it's pretty early on that you have Simon and Harriet being like, hey, shouldn't Tom have heard from his brother. This is
Oh,
weird.
I missed that.
I wasn't sure what they were talking about because they do say like he right after he says like this is the other dramatic irony is he tells Simon like I really love Lucy, she's awesome, and he's like, Simon, weren't you going to tell me something? And he's like, no, I'm just going to tell you you're doing great tonight. That's also supposed to be like, yeah, we know that something's up. What is it? What is it exactly? And by the time it's revealed, a lot of it is known already by a lot of people, by Simon, by Harriet, I think, certainly by Rudolph. And then Danny's finding it out last with us. And then Tom comes into the sort of broadcast room and sees that his brother is one of the 3 American soldiers taken by terrorists overseas. And he has the very relatable and true moment where he's like, that's not my brother. It doesn't look like him. They're like, they beat him up. He's like, that name is common. And then they're like, here's the platoon that they got them from. And he's like, fuck. Okay, and then all they can tell him really is like, and you get to actually watch Rudolph be a human after 2 episodes of him being an ass, or the whole show of him being an ass. He's like, we already have a flight coming to bring your parents here. Like, nothing, we're doing the best we can. Anything you need. Like, what do you do as the head of a network of television when one of your actors is going through this? Like, you have nothing here. Yeah. All of the money in the world, all of the plans, all of the sort of affairs of mice and men, if you will, are nothing compared to like, well, this is just a human moment that we have to be here for him with.
Right.
So I thought that worked. I thought that like kind of worked. But I agree, as we were saying before, that the next episode's probably going to be dookie because it's going to be like very high stress, very high drama, and like ending several arcs at once, which I don't exactly trust the show to do well.
I mean, I think I just didn't like the moment because it represents everything that I don't want Studio 60 to be. I don't want this story. Like, I don't like Tom Jeter as a character.
Yeah.
Really at all. The stuff about his brother being a soldier has always felt corny and very like annoying in the same way of like, Harriet's religious. It's 2007. We're fighting the culture wars. And it's just this sort of like very overwrought dramatic stuff that I just am not, I'm not coming to Studio 60 to watch this really. So, but I can recognize how like separate from those expectations, it functions and could be moving as a plot point.
And I'm sure at the time this landed a lot better with people who like maybe have family who were overseas and stuff like that. Like this is for somebody that we are not right now. With our different relationship to the conflict overseas in the Middle East and all of that. But yeah, it's weird that this like we really started on a hilarious, like entertaining, charming episode, lots of good performances, and then we end on one that like kind of sets up some dumb stuff and then just goes full bleak in the last like couple minutes. So I guess I'm curious what we're doing next week.
I think the bleak train's going to keep rolling.
Yes, we got 4 episodes left?
4 episodes left.
Damn. Magellan, if you don't mind, could you tell me what we're watching next time on Studio 60 on SunsetChatz?
Next time on SunsetChatz, we are watching the first 2 parts of a 3-parter, actually.
Oh boy.
Yeah. The 3-parter overall is called K+R. So first we're watching episode 19, which is K+R part 1. Oh boy, you're going to like this.
Uh-oh.
Flashbacks reveal how Matt and Danny were fired 5 years ago. Meanwhile, that's kind of nice, actually. Meanwhile, Jordan's pregnancy takes a dangerous turn.
Okay.
Then we get K+R part 2. Jordan experiences major problems with her pregnancy. Simon loses his temper with the press. And flashbacks continue to reveal how Matt and Danny got fired from the show 5 years ago.
Oh boy.
It is a very Sorkin move to be like, here's all this stuff happening.
Sorry. Can I just read the summary for part 3?
Yeah.
Even more is revealed in flashback of how Matt and Danny were fired years ago.
Where are these wiki summaries from? Is this from Wikipedia?
This is from Amazon.
Amazon. Beautiful work, whoever wrote those. Yeah, it's very Sorkin. It's very classic TV writing to be like, here's all this crazy shit going on in the present. Hold on, pause button. Let's roll it back to several years ago. Like, not tell you the story that you just came here to see.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm excited. I think I'm excited. Studio 60 has been on like a decent streak. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And we're
we'll
going to have
see.
fun.
Hopefully, maybe they end in a satisfying way. Who knows?
I mean, you gotta send them home happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the idea. That's the idea, at least. I want to send the listener home happy and take it to the plug zone. John, do you mind if I do this one?
Go for it.
Thanks, kiddo. If you would like to email us questions, comments, concerns, please send those to chatspod@gmail.com. That's CHATZPOD@gmail.com. We also have a Twitter @chatspod where you can send us feedback and questions about the show over there. We would love it if you could rate us on Apple Podcasts or your podcast platform of choice so that people can hear about the Chats Pod. And if you'd like to support us and you're able to financially and you have a couple bucks to spare a month, check out patreon.com/chatspod. We have all sorts of bonus content over there. You can get all of it for just the price of a small cup of coffee. Just $3 a month. You're getting stuff like film commentaries. You're getting hangout podcasts. You're getting pilot shows, which is how we discovered Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. And there's a lot of fun stuff over there if you want more Chats goodness. And before we leave you, instead of traditional plugs, we do chatsums here on Chats. So these are little recommendations of things we like and enjoyed this week that made us smile, made us think, things that we want to recommend to you, the listener. Six, would you like to go first with your chatsum for this week?
Sure. So I'm bad at eating.
Yep.
I just don't do it sometimes.
It is hard.
And so some people, like the most basic thought is like, okay, so you're going to lose weight. Great. It's like, actually, no. Actually, your body, if you don't eat consistently, decides that you're starving and it needs to hoard all the calories it can. And so you gain weight. And so in an effort to fight that, I am now having food at 3 times a day at least. But at least one of those meals, sometimes 2, is a Cliff Bar.
Ooh.
I'm going to specifically recommend, I really like the Cool Mint chocolate. But there's also you can get some caramel ones or like a peanut butter one.
Yeah, I like the peanut butter filled ones.
The peanut butter filled ones are good. Just get one. Just, they're protein bars. They taste all right. Hey, protein bars. They're all right. They're better than having food sometimes. That's probably not true. You should probably listen. If you can make yourself, you should probably eat meals. But if you can't, like me, then Cliff Bars. Also trail mix. I eat a lot of trail mix. It's like a little packet of trail mix instead of having lunch.
So much. I need to get into trail mix that doesn't have the sweet stuff in it, because I know everyone likes the sweet stuff, but that's also what makes trail mix not healthy in the high salt content. But I love a good protein bar. Cliff Bar is definitely up there with raw calories. You just want calories to your face. You definitely want to get a Cliff Bar. That's a good option.
Yeah, for sure.
Magellan, what about you? What's your chatsum for this week, pal?
I have 2 chatsums for you, actually. The first is an album which was released recently as of our recording this, but by the time this comes out, who knows?
Decades ago.
Yeah, decades. You're listening to this in 2030. But an album came out mid-June that I just got around to listening to by Phoebe Bridgers.
Yes.
Who is fantastic. I fell in love with Phoebe Bridgers and her music with her 2017 album Stranger in the Alps, which, by the way, is a reference to the TV edit of The Big Lebowski.
Big Lebowski.
Yeah, this is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps, that's the best album title ever. But she released an album in June called Punisher, which is just more good Phoebe Bridgers songs. So if you have not heard her, you should listen to both of those. And if you've heard Stranger in the Alps and you're like, is Punisher good? Yeah, it's as good. It's all good. She's very good.
How would you describe Phoebe Bridgers' musical style?
Sort of like you're having one of those dreams where you get in a fight with somebody that you knew a long time ago, but it's nice.
Oh, and you wake up and you're like, why was I mad?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I miss them.
Yeah.
That's what her music feels like.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, Phoebe Bridgers. And then my second recommendation is more of a TV related one. I
love
just,
TV.
I just finished a full rewatch of Community, which was awesome. And if you have never seen Community, you should see that. But that's not my chatsum. I've been consuming as much sort of ancillary Community material, like interviews, as I possibly can. And there's this one interview that Dan Harmon did with the AV Club at the end of season 2, where it's just an extended interview of him talking about every single episode of season 2 and the context in which each of them were made and the sort of like reasons why the episodes turned out the way they did. And it's fascinating. And he speaks really thoughtfully about television and about his own writing process and about the sort of concessions that he had to make versus what he was hoping for those episodes to be. It really is super interesting. So I highly recommend finding the AV Club's season 2, like episode by episode interview with Dan Harmon.
That's Dan Harmon walks us through Community's second season. It's a 4-parter. The interview, it looks like it was done by Emily Vanderwerf.
Mm-hmm.
Fun stuff. I would definitely check that out. Like you do, AV Club Dan Harmon Community interview is the most 2010s phrase of all time. But despite my problems with Dan Harmon, I still think that would be very cool to watch.
Yeah,
I would fight him in the arena. And speaking of the arena, I have a chat for y'all as well.
What do you got?
I want to close it out by talking about a game that Magellan and I have been playing with our friend James, friend of the podcast, best friend of the podcast, called Risk of Rain 2. So for some background, back in, I think, 2013 or so, we played this indie 2D side-scrolling roguelite called Risk of Rain, which is basically a run, like roguelike means like a run-based game with some RPG elements, some action shooting, and it was pretty straightforward. It was all about collecting items and fighting bosses and beating a run of a game. The unique thing about Risk of Rain is that there's a bunch of different classes, all earned through different really fun and exciting ways. And Risk of Rain 2 basically translates that entire formula into behind-the-back 3D third person, with some slight tweaks to make it more engaging, more fun, a lot tighter, and honestly pretty broken in some really exciting ways. If you are the type of person that enjoys stat crunching or like developing broken builds in MMOs or in other RPGs, I really, really highly recommend Risk of Rain on the PC or the Switch, because you can either have like really difficult runs where you're like, this game just seems hard and unfair, or like our friend James did 2 nights ago, you can just break the game and basically be unkillable, like really easily, like with not a lot of effort, and just be like, well, okay, bosses are being erased in front of my eyes. So if that sounds appealing to you, I highly, highly recommend you check out Risk of Rain 2. Or the first one. They're both good. But yeah, thank you to Six, our Scanline Media cohort, co-host, co-pal, for joining us.
Sure.
Six, you're my hero. Magellan, you are the rock to my hard place, and I don't want you to forget that when you sleep in bed at night, and in your waking days as well. And thank you, dear listener, for listening to this episode of Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz. Let's restart the clock.
We did the jokes.
We did the news.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to that episode of Studio 60 on the SunsetChatz. You heard all of the usual plugs there at the end of the episode, but I want to give you a couple of updates about recent content that you can check out on our Patreon. So this is currently the month of March, and over on the Patreon, we started the month with the Chats Nights, where we ranked the months. Yesterday, we put out a movie commentary of the film RoboCop, which I had never seen before. So, that's sort of our bread and butter on commentary chats, watching 80s movies that I haven't seen, along with our meat and potatoes, which is watching just films that are peak aughts aesthetic. And then next week, we're going to be releasing a Chats Nights that's a surprise format. Al and I did a little game, and it was really fun, so you should check it out. Speaking of games, on Friday we streamed over on Twitch, which we're doing every once in a while, so you should check it out. In that stream, we played Star Wars Squadrons, and then we spent some time on Duolingo and started to learn Klingon. So, I mean, that was fun. Head on over to twitch.tv/chatspod to watch the archived video of that stream. And that's what I got, folks. Thank you again so much for listening. Be good to yourselves. Have a wonderful week. And we will see you next week for even more fun with our friends, our good TV friends. Let's restart the clock.